everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Cherita, and today I'm going to be doing another cheer video explaining why the standings were the way they were at Worlds. I know it's been some time since Worlds ended, but I still have a lot of people requesting that I explain why certain teams won in the divisions that they did. So today I'm going to be doing the International Open All-Girl Level 5. People were questioning the top 3 teams in this division, so I'm just going to go from first place to third place, kind of like I did in my medium Coed division, and I will link that below if you are interested in watching that. Oh, and I will also link the videos that I watched on YouTube down below so that you guys can go back and watch if you guys are interested. First, I'm going to be starting with California All-Stars Sparkle. Now, in the international divisions, tumbling only, both standing and tumbling, standing and running tumbling are only worth 5 points on the score sheet. So there's not 5 points for difficulty and then 5 points for technique. It's just 5 points all around. It's really, really important that not only do you have the appropriate amount of tumbling, but you have to make sure that it looks good too, because you're only toying with 5 points. So if your tumbling is difficult but it doesn't look good, you're not going to score 5. Like, you don't get to make it up in execution. So it's better to go clean. So for Cali Sparkle, they had really good synchronization and they were clean in their standing tumbling. Running tumbling was just as clean and safe as their standing tumbling was. And I know there was a popped pass, and everybody's like, well, how did they win with a popped pass? Well, all she did was a punch front through to round off back handspring. And the reason why that's not accounted for is, one, they had all of the tumbling that they needed to, make sure that they scored in that high range of the 5 points. And coaches can argue, like, as a judge, you have to think, like, can this coach argue that they put that popped pass in there on purpose? Because it's not like she was out of control. It wasn't like she did like a round up back handspring and like rebounded and her arms were all over the place and then she like landed on her butt. Like, nothing like that. Coaches can argue, well, we wanted her to be on this side of the floor and we didn't want her to run across the back because that would look tacky, so we just had her, do a tumbling pass for, I don't know, synchronization purposes, or for, we didn't want to mess up her counts or whatever. But they could have argued that she did that on purpose. So that's why popped passes aren't deductions. Building creativity, I believe, is also worth 5 points, and in Cali's routine, they had a lot of building creativity. They didn't just load it. Not only did they have building creativity, but their routine was pretty creative as their dismounts. They never did the same dismounts. Like, usually you just see teams doing double downs or bump downs or whatever, but in each dismount that they did, it was something different every single time. Like, yes, they did have the double down, but they also had, I believe they had like a 1.5 to prone. They had a girl that did a kick double. They had fold over stunts in their pyramid. Like, there was a lot of creative dismounts rather than just bumping down or double downs or the normal stuff that you see in level 5 routines. Their elite section was really clean. They did a 1.5 around, or maybe I think it was a 1.5 around, and it was to lib. But what I noticed with a lot of other teams, and not just in this division, is that when they're doing double ups or double arounds, the bases are moving a lot underneath the flyer. And in this case, they just did a clean 1.5 to lib, made sure it stuck, and then they finished the rest of their elite. So I think watching the bases technique is what the judges were looking at, not just did the flyers stay in the air and did it, were the flyers tight, because you also have to look what's underneath the flyer, and those are the bases. And yes, they can put them in the air, but it has to be done with good technique. So these 1.5 rounds to lib were really solid by the bases. They finished it. There was no movement underneath the flyers, and then they continued on with the rest of their sequence. And then their dance was lit. Their dance was everything. And dance is worth 10 points. Probably scored pretty high in their dance. It was high energy. It was entertaining. There wasn't standing around. There were a lot of formation changes, groundwork, stuff that you would want to see in a dance. And second place was Cheer Extreme Cougars. They also had a really creative routine. They used creative entries into their stunts, creative building. They also had multiple dismounts, not as many as Callie, but they didn't stick to just double downs. I want to say Cougars probably didn't score as high as Callie based on technique in their tumbling, in running tumbling, and in their standing back handspring series. They had a lot of tucked fulls. Well, maybe not so much in their running tumbling, but I know in their standing tumbling, they had tucked fulls, which standing fulls are typically done in a tucked position. But once you add back handsprings in front of them, they should be laid out. And if you have some people doing laid out twisting and some people doing tucked, one, it's not clean, and two, you don't know if it's just bad technique or what. You know, if you kept all your handspring series that had tucked fulls together, then okay, as long as it's clean, then cool. But when you have a series of tumbling passes going to the back, standing tumbling series going to the back, and you've got two people over here doing tucks, another third person here doing a layout, then you've got two people doing layouts and another person doing a tuck, like it's just not as clean as it should be. And I'm not knocking tucked layouts or tucked fulls at all, but if one person's going to tuck, then they should all tuck, or if one person's going to lay out, then they should all lay out. And so they probably got dinged a little bit in their technique. And like I said, tumbling's only out of 5. Standing tumbling's only out of 5. So yes, the difficulty was there, but then you have to counteract it with the technique that wasn't there. So in the senior divisions, jumps are broken down into difficulty and technique. In the international divisions, it's just 5 points. So same thing goes, you have to have 3 + 1 or 4, and then being level 5, you have to have 3 to tuck or 4 to tuck or even 1 to tuck, just as long as you have the tuck with your jump series. The one thing different that Cougars did was they didn't connect their 4 jumps to tuck. They did a hurdler, they paused, and then they did a hurdler double toe tuck. So 3 jumps to tuck is easier than 4 jumps to tuck. So they probably didn't score as high as Callie in their jumps to tuck, just based on the fact that jumps are only worth 5, so something had to be taken into consideration when it came to jumps. Their baskets were pretty decent. They did have different baskets. They had hitch kick doubles and kick doubles, but on the double down part of their baskets, there were a lot of like helicopter legs going on like this. So they're not going to score very high in technique. They'll score high in difficulty. As far as their technique in their baskets, the hitch kicks and the kicks were fine, but the ankles just weren't together and they weren't quite as tight as they should have been to score higher in basket technique. So they had everything that they needed in their pyramid, but their pyramid was very stagnant. Like, it started out with 2 stunt groups, like one in front of the other, and then like the other 2 on the sides, and then they just kind of kept that same formation through the entire pyramid. So yes, they had everything that they needed, but there is creativity accounted for. So their pyramid creativity probably wasn't as high as it could have been, only based on the fact that their pyramid didn't move. Now you can argue that, well, there was one stunt group in front of the other, but that was it. Like, nothing even went like diagonally in, like nothing changed in that pyramid. It was a great pyramid, but it just stayed stagnant the whole time. And in 3rd place, Great White Sharks from Cheer Sport. So remember earlier I mentioned how Callie did their 1.5 and they stopped and the bases stopped and it was clean. Great Whites, they did a lot of double ups and double arounds, and while the flyers were amazing, but the bases were doing a lot of running around underneath the flyer. Now, you can argue that that was their technique for a double around, or maybe their goal was to do like a 1.5 and then keep it moving so it looked like a double up or a double around. I'm not sure, but if they would have just stopped at the 1.5 mark and then kept going, like if they would have made a full stop like in a body position and then turned the rest of the way, I think they probably would have scored higher in technique only because bases running around on the bottom isn't good technique for a 1.5 around or a double around or a double up or whatever you're doing, or even a full up. Like bases moving is not proper technique. They did this twice in their elite section, so I'm assuming that's probably where they lost a lot of their points, was in stunting technique. Also in their pyramid, they had all of the elements, but they lacked creativity in their transitions. Like at one point, they did like a front full or something. They caught their flyers, they let them out, and then like the whole stunt group, they're all on the ground and they just like walked as a stunt group like to the back, rather than like reloading and then moving or whatever. It ended with a pyramid. So after they did their dance, they're doing their pyramid and the pyramid's flowing, then all of a sudden everybody's on the ground and they're just like walking around. So I think that's just lack of creativity. The pyramid was good. The whole routine was amazing. But it's just like those little things that judges are looking for. They want a whole fluid routine. In their basket section, there was somebody, I think it was the front right basket, and I don't remember if they did hitch kick or kick doubles, but there were some bent knees like after their first kick. Like their bottom leg was bent, and I don't know if it was just one, but I just remember like on the front right basket, like the bottom leg was kind of bent before she did her double. Technique wise, they probably didn't score as high in their baskets. I feel like Great White they had the best tumbling because they had a whole bunch of doubles, but tumbling's only worth 5 points in the international divisions, and they probably scored the highest in tumbling because their tumbling for the most part was pretty clean and it was difficult, more difficult than the others. But at the same time, stunting is like 20 points for technique and 20 points for difficulty. And while yes, they probably scored high in difficulty, a lot of it was probably taken off in technique. So once again, just like in the other video that I did, my medium co-ed division, technique is what kept a lot of these teams from scoring as high as they could have. And I'm not saying that this is exactly the reason why they didn't win, but from what I saw, from what I watched, and from my opinion, this is why I believe they scored the way they did. Because yes, all these teams were amazing and they were all entertaining, but when it comes down to it, cleanliness and good technique will always win. So, and like I said, I get really nervous when I put out these videos because I don't want anybody to think that I'm personally attacking them. I'm just explaining because people are genuinely curious on why teams place the way they did. Thank you guys so much for watching again. Make sure you guys share. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Leave comments below. I will try my best to respond to every comment. Don't forget to click subscribe so that you guys get notified when I put out new content, which is usually once a week. Have a positive and love-filled day. Bye!